dipping.
Welcome back to Double Dipping, the podcast where one episode is never enough. Today, with me I have Ciara.
Hi.
Ciara, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
No, this is an episode that was a long time coming.
Yeah.
This, in the whole scheme of things, probably would have been episode 3.
Yeah, probably. I guess. Yeah, that was my bad.
But there was like a misunderstanding where I thought I had asked, and I thought you were like, no. But then it turns out you did want to be on it, so here we are at episode 8.
Oh, 8's my favorite number.
Oh, well, there you go. So a little differently today is usually we would have the dip in front of us, but it's heating up in the oven because you said that it's better when it's warm.
Yes. It's at its peak point when it is, like, boiling hot.
Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah. So, well, the dip's not here yet. Why don't you talk about it?
Okay. So I first had this dip, like, it was a few years ago, at my dad's best friend from high school's house, but I call him my uncle because he's more like family. And he cooks almost everything, like, super homemade. So, like, he'll even make lasagna, but, like, straight from scratch, like, everything.
Like the noodles.
He will
and
make
everything?
the sauce, yeah. So, and it's, like, the best lasagna I've ever had
But
in
like,
my
does
life.
he like take tomatoes and make the sauce?
Oh yeah, totally.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no, it's a
I've,
whole day
I've seen
experience
people
for
do
him
that,
to make
like,
lasagna.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a task.
And so he made this dip as an appetizer when we went over because he wanted to make sure we could eat something while he was cooking the lasagna. And so he lives in Ontario, so we were, like, there visiting on vacation basically.
Right.
And he made this dip and he was like, yeah, it's buffalo chicken dip. And I'm not one for spice really a whole lot. Like, as much as I like spice, I have a very low spice tolerance. So there was, like, I was nervous. I was like, buffalo chicken dip, that doesn't sound like that's going to end well with me. And honestly, it was probably one of the better dips I've ever had. I'm typically, like, one of my other favorite dips would be, like, my nanny's triple layer dip, which is, like, you've had it. It's, like, sour cream mixed with cream cheese and then salsa and, like, shredded cheese. And I feel like everybody's kind of had their own version of that.
Their own version of that, yeah.
So I felt like that was a little too common that I wanted to bring something a little different than what I've seen. Like, you guys have done a lot with salsa and, like...
There's been, we've done, like, the salsa and sour cream, but we've also done the guacamole, so this is, like, it's a different sort of thing.
Yeah, I thought I'd take a different route. So,
yeah.
It's actually, I've only ever eaten it before, like, I'd never attempted making it, so it is the first try of me making this,
Okay.
so keep that in mind. But essentially, he sent me the list of ingredients, like, the other day, and I genuinely thought there was so much more in it than there is. It's actually only, like, 5 ingredients. And it actually really didn't take me that long to make. It took me, like, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes to, like, skillet the dip itself, and then you just put cheese on the top and bake it. So, like, max 20 minutes probably.
Yeah. I know it's got it in the oven over there right
yes.
now. It's heating up for us.
It is.
That's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Today, also on Double Dipping, we've taken a couple precautionary measures because in the past, we used to do it with the webcam.
Okay.
And then it changed to using my phone because it was just better.
Okay.
Because before, I think the second to last episode we recorded with the webcam was Harry's, and it was all choppy, and I actually had to, like, because we streamed that one, so I had to download it from Twitch and then use that footage because my footage was all messed up.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to ever run into that again. So we started using my phone. But then my phone would decide to stop recording for some reason, which is when we're using the back camera. But today, the phone screen is facing us and we're using the front-facing camera because the quality is the same.
Yeah, the quality would be the same. And there's also, like, settings on your phone where you can make it so, like, it's not mirror view, because that's what I changed mine to.
Yeah. So. I mean, this is mirrored right now. I'm not realizing. But that's an easy in-post fix. So
yeah, that's true.
And it's not like we have on any clothes that have words on them.
No, otherwise that probably would have been
a
little weird, but...
and before I forget, that does happen. I'm going to turn the sound off on my computer, because if I get an email, then it'll make a noise.
Oh, yeah.
I've definitely had that happen before.
Da-da-da.
Yeah, especially, like, when recording audio for my film class, where, like, you're doing film tone, like, room tone, and I just have to sit there for, like, 10 minutes not making any noise. Yeah. And I'm, like, 2 minutes in, and then I get a notification on my computer, and I have to restart.
I'll be honest, I'm probably like the worst film student ever. When I did room tone, I got so bored, so I stopped at 2 minutes, and then I just repeatedly added the same set of room tone every 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that's not terrible. And I feel like I wasn't, for my last film, I was emailing my prof right before this. And basically, I sent her an email this morning that was like, hey, I have a little audio clip, like some music that, isn't copyright. Caden recorded it. It's for the podcast.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's my audio to use. And I asked her if I could use it, and she didn't respond to me until 7:00, which was an hour past the due date. And she was like, no, you can't. I was like,
That's not helpful.
Okay. But no, then I was like, okay, I'm going to need another day. Like,
yeah,
because I had already submitted it. Because I'm like, I'm going to need to, well, no, she's like, you can't use music at all. She was saying. And I was like, okay. And she's like, I was like, I'm going to need another day so I can, change it, resubmit it, send it back. And then she was like, don't worry about it. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. Because I have it chopped up in a really nice way.
Yeah.
Where, like, it actually went to the music. But it's
fun.
Yeah. I mean, I was really happy not to have to change it because it would have taken me a bunch more time. And
yeah, that's fair.
Time I don't have tonight.
That's fair.
And yeah. But it was certainly an interesting film.
Yeah.
It was with my dad.
Oh, okay.
It'll probably, now that it's actually in approved, it'll probably be up on the YouTube channel within the week. But it's with my dad, and it's about him and his love for Lego.
Oh, cool.
So we're like in the Lego room, and it's like the whole interview there, and he talks about all kinds of stuff, like, why he collects all the Lego boxes and why we use the little dip containers for building Lego and everything. Like, it's a lot of fun. And it's like, it's a fun thing to like use to immortalize my dad as well.
Yeah, I get that.
Because that'll always be around. Because like if I have kids and they'll be like, what was Grandpa like? And I'll just be like, this is what he was like.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because he used to be all goofy and now he's a cranky old man. But that was a power flicker.
It was, yeah.
Thankfully, everything we use is on battery power.
Well, not the oven.
Well, not, yeah. The oven seems fine.
But honestly,
actually.
I think the dip might be done soon, so.
Okay. Do you want to check it?
I can check it.
Okay.
I can pause. At least it sounded like it might be, so. Yeah. It smells like it might be.
This intermission brought to you by nobody. We're still looking for a sponsor. We haven't actively looked for a sponsor. We just don't have one.
I feel like if you reached out to Coldstream and English.
You think?
Maybe?
It's like they don't sell dips.
They don't, but they sell nice beverages, and we have done a good robot beer tasting before.
We've done a good robot in Hudson. We actually had a bunch of beer in Hudson's episode.
I'm just saying, it could be an option.
That smells good. Like from here.
Yeah.
Imagine if we had smell-o-vision. Oh my god. We're gonna need like a towel to put or literally the towel you're holding in your hand right now.
Yeah, that one too.
Yeah.
The cutting board?
But here, give me the towel and then I'll lay it out and then you can put that on top.
Yeah, because she's sizzling, so it's definitely.
Yeah, like it seems like it's really hot. What are the dimensions of that thing? This will hold it. Okay. We're gonna scoot you here. Hopefully that didn't make too much noise. I need to set that down.
Don't touch it.
Yeah, no, that'll hurt a lot. And I like my skin not boiling. Ooh, look at that. If only you could. Yeah, no, you can't.
Bring out the chips now.
Can't see. Yeah. Bring the chips. Oh boy. Yeah. Wow.
That's what I mean. It smells better when it's warm.
I mean, it smelled good last night when it was like you had cooked it and it was cold.
Yeah.
But this smells like.
It smells even better when it's hot, though.
Oh, this smells really good. Well, we're gonna let that cool down so that we don't
die.
Yeah. Combust from the inside out, which wouldn't be very pleasant.
No.
But no, that looks really good, Ciara.
Snap.
So, we've known each other for a really long time.
Yep.
Some say too long.
Whoever said some.
And yeah, so
6 years.
Is it 6?
6 now. I think 6.
So we would have met in grade 9, which...
So yeah, probably put 6 then, because I met you second, like, closer to the end of second semester in grade 9.
Yeah, okay, yeah, 6 years does make sense. Yeah, wow. That does feel like such a long time ago.
Yeah, I know.
Because we're in our third year of university now, and being... Yeah, no,
grade 9 feels like a fever dream a little bit. Like, there's a lot of grade 9 that I don't remember.
There's a lot of grade 9 I try not to remember.
I don't remember, not because I'm not trying to remember it, just like in general I'll get like odd memories every once in a while that like pop up in my brain, and it'll be like some person that I haven't thought about for the last 6 years, and I'm like, oh my god, I wonder how that person is.
Yeah, no, I've certainly had that where I like think about somebody and I'm like, I wonder what they're up to, and I remembered why I don't hang out with them anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you know what, I don't actually care. Yeah, no, that was, God, because we were in a big friend group in high school.
Yeah.
All throughout high school.
Yeah.
And then we ended up going to the same school here. I was always going to X. That was never
I wasn't necessarily
really a question. But you made your decision later, because you what you're doing now is so very different than what you were originally looking to do.
Yeah, I was accepted in early acceptance in like October, and I got like the package in the mail that like you like stereotypically would see if you get accepted to university. Like, yeah. I got the whole folder, the whole 9, and like whatever, and they were like, oh, you got like an entrance scholarship and all of this, but I heard back from Acadia in less than 24 hours that I'd been accepted.
That's kind of crazy.
Which, like, I mean, I like to think I have good grades, but I didn't think I was, like,
that's
special enough to need to get like, it back in 24 hours.
When you go in for a job interview, and it's, like, one interview, and at the end of the video, they're like, you got the job, and you're like,
You're like, hold on, this is kind of sketchy.
That's a little weird.
And so, yeah, so I just was pretty torn. Like, I was really excited when I got my Acadia acceptance, because I thought that's where I was going to go. But yeah, I'd originally applied for a Bachelor of Arts here, but a Bachelor of Science at Acadia because they didn't offer the Bachelor of Arts program in kinesiology or human kinetics, because I wanted to be a physiotherapist. Surprise, I don't like science. Not that anybody who knows me didn't know that, but...
Yeah, I mean, I remember it being quite the shock that you were going to a science route.
Yeah, I think for me, like... I was leaning towards X because it was the arts program, which meant only half of my courses were going to be sciences and the rest was pretty free range. And honestly, my current major of English probably would have been my minor, I think. But looking back, I think I was just I always wanted to help people, and I was looking more at the end goal than like the process of getting to it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't accounting for like not enjoying classes and like how that would affect you like mentally when you're choosing a career path, because for me I've always been someone who's like, I put in the work, so I wasn't concerned about like putting in the effort. It was more just like it took until like 4 days before I was moving here to realize, oh my god, what am I doing to myself? Yeah,
like it's certainly like, because I originally came to X for physics.
Yeah.
And now physics as a topic is still my absolute favorite. The work that is involved with the physics, I just don't enjoy it. It's too much math, and if I could just do pure theory, which you can't really do, I would. But you know, that's when like I got into computer science in my first year, and I loved that work, and I still do. I'll still bitch and complain about it and get really frustrated with it, but then it's still my favorite. I really enjoy doing it. Because it's always a puzzle. So it's like I'll work on something for like 2 hours and make 0 progress, and then I'll like be missing a comma somewhere, and I'll put it in and everything will work, and it'll be like the most exciting moment of my entire day.
That's crazy. See, that would done well.
And it would make up for the last 2 hours somehow. I don't know, I think it works well with my video game brain.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which is like, if I can have a job where, or just like even schoolwork that is set up in the way where it's like a grind, little reward along the way, and then but like you're not done the task, that's the best way to go. It's It's a lot of fun. And because I was gonna originally do education when I was done.
Yeah.
But I changed my mind because when they first come here, they were toying with the idea of a physics education joint that would only be 5 years. Mm-hmm. They never ended up doing that. Which is like
There's a lot of reasons though, I think, why that didn't happen. I think part of it is like I know
I don't think there's any interest.
I don't think it's just interest. I think it's
like I honestly think it was just me, and then I'm not in physics anymore. So.
I think part of it was like if you do it for one major, you have to consider it for all, and like that makes a major difference in how you view all programs and how they view the education program here. And like I know that they just started doing the accelerated nursing program, but like they also just put in the new gym, and I know that like I know sometimes with universities too, a lot of it has to do with money, and like I know they are down money from what they were a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And so I think they're also trying not to implement like a new program that they potentially would start and put all this money into but see fail and then not be able to like see long-term success, because typically a new program, it's very rare you see like super great success in the first couple of years. Like forensic psych here was probably the last program that they immediately saw success in from like the first year, and like it's become a more selective program now because of how many applicants they get, because the program's not common across Canada.
Yeah, and I think there used to be a physics professor who worked here, Baker. Baker was, I think he's actually my favorite professor that I've ever had. And it sucks that he doesn't work at X anymore, but his first year at X, and I suppose his only year, was my first year as well. Mm-hmm. And he was big on education, and one of the things he was working on that he had students working on for summer research was an open source physics textbook. Mm-hmm. So it was free, but it had everything that was needed for everything. And it was just, that's what it was. And then so he was big into education and all that stuff. So I think he was also gunning for the education physics joint thing, but like he left.
Yeah.
So that never happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think as much fun as I think education would be, I am not a fan of school.
That's where we differ.
Like, I just think it's because our brains are so different, and I love to learn. Oh, I love to learn.
Same.
I don't like how I'm taught.
Yeah, I mean, like, growing up with Freya, I kind of, like, have come to realize that, like, teaching styles aren't made for neurodivergent people.
No, it just doesn't work.
But for me, like, I thrive on structure, and, like, the thought of being out of school and, like, living in a career is more scary for me than the thought of, like, just going to school for the rest of my life. Like, obviously that's not achievable. Like, that's not accomplishable.
Really,
I'm just going to go to school for the rest of my life. Like, I'm obviously taking education.
You'll be 90 with, like, 70 degrees and just, like...
It wouldn't shock me, really.
Yeah. But no, like, for me, a job, a career is the escape out of education. And, like I'm in the education to get to the career.
That's fair.
Like, because that's where I'm at. And, like, I'm enjoying the stuff I'm learning, but just not how I'm taught it.
That's fair. I can
Which
get
is,
that.
like, why I think I'm really enjoying computer science as my chosen thing, because a lot of the programming stuff is self-taught. And for that, I can approach it very differently and then just work on it, because programming languages are one of those things that thankfully has an absurd amount of resources. And it's really nice, because right now I'm taking mobile application development, which is pretty alright class.
Yeah.
But everything we learn is directly from Android's website. Like, if you wanted to, you can go on there today, don't make an account, and just learn everything I've learned so far.
Okay.
For free.
Okay.
And that's what it is. And it's really cool. And I really enjoy it. But like the structure of the class and the assignments and like what apps to actually build is like required to really test your knowledge and stuff like that. But it's a lot of fun. And I'm really liking it.
It's fair. I would say for like being in English, it's just such a different approach to teaching to begin with, because there's so much flexibility in like what you can like write about when it comes to classes. Like, classes typically have general themes, but like they're pretty expansive. Like in my medieval class, we're talking about like Arthurian literature, but like I'm writing my paper on a couple of stories from Arthurian literature and comparing the notion of like the damsel in distress to like Disney films. So like the vast majority of the time with English, it's just so flexible for like what you can write about and like how you approach different things. So like for me, like obviously I'm writing a thesis next year, so like taking one class in English typically for someone like sparks like what your like field of English that you would like study in, because English is such a broad field to begin with that a lot of people have specializations within the field, and that's typically like how professors get hired, is you have a specialization.
Makes sense.
And so like for me, like my specialization would probably be within the like Disney children's film and TV like realm. Like if I were to pick something that I had to specialize in, that's probably what I'd pick.
I mean, that's such a fun thing to specialize in as well, because you're able to, because you like writing.
Yeah.
And you love the Disney movies and the musicals and the all that. So I mean, that makes so much sense.
And like for me too, like the interest is just like, I think a lot of people forget that like songs and TVs and movies are like all forms of literature. It's just like visual literature in a way. That like people tend to think like, oh, English is like solely books. And I find that's something that a lot of people, like when I first brought up that I was an English major, was like, oh wow, so like you read a lot. And I do, but it's also like I'm in a children's film and TV class right now. We do like noir film classes, like detective fiction, which will be films, and like Sherlock Holmes books and those kinds of things. Like it's so much broader of a category, I think, than a lot of people realize. I think a lot of people realize then you fall into like the music category, or then you fall into like film studies, but they all kind of overlap a bit. And I think that's something that like people kind of miss when it comes to like an English degree, is like you think of the stereotypical English class you took in high school, because like
it's all stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Songs or poems or whatever, like it's all encapsulated in that. Like I know 2 episodes ago Caden was on, and I'm fairly sure Caden's major is English.
Okay.
But he's a musician.
Yeah.
And he has dozens of songs that he's written himself, and he just like, that's his outlook through English, is music. And I mean, he's a very talented music player, but also like the words and stuff behind it is like, that's where his inspiration through English is.
Yeah, it's very interesting to watch like how different people approach different things, because like obviously we talked about it, and like I'm going into education, I want to be a teacher, but like one of my other like aspirations would be to like eventually write some book, like be an author of some kind, like, and it doesn't even have to be like a continual series or something that I come up with, but like just I'd like to release one book.
So a fiction book then.
Yeah. Or like a children's book. I find like children's books are becoming so much more creative now. Like my mom went to Hawaii, and when she came back, she brought me back a little, do you remember the little golden board books from when we were kids?
Those are everywhere. They make so many more of them than I thought.
And that's something I didn't know either. She brought me back one from Hawaii that's about Elton John. Like they're just,
yeah, like I got one for Christmas a few years ago, and it was Black Panther.
Yeah.
Like it was really surprising.
They're expanding the amount of like knowledge and like accessibility for children to like pop culture in ways that are safer. Exactly. And I like,
because when I was a kid, I remember them being like Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
Like very sort of like, you know, Snow White, or like just like very straight cut, this is your standard. But they're expanding. They're expanding
more, and like I know there are some people out there who like feel like people like Elton John and stuff, like it's not something that you should talk about your kids with, but I find a lot of it is like very subjective, because it also depends on like how significant certain people are like to you, because like everybody can think of a person in popular culture that's significant to them in some way, whether it's like an artist who wrote a song or an album that like changed your life.
Exactly.
Like,
and of course you'd want to show that to your kids.
Exactly. So like for me, like my music taste is also so varied. Like I like things like Elton John. Queen is like, you know me well enough to know it's like one of my tops. Like the Beatles has been a generational thing for me. I learned about it through my grandfather and like my brother and my parents, and so I've also learned about all kinds of different rock bands and stuff through my dad. But at the same time too, like there's bands like the Chainsmokers was like really pivotal, like when I first started listening to their music when I was in like a really bad moment in my life, and like I've seen them in concert now, and like to me like their music was life-changing. And so they would be like, their music, once like if I had kids were at the right age, I would show it to them. Obviously they like that young, it would be cool to have something like a board book or something to explain to them.
We're like, these are the people and this is them on
Yeah.
stage, and like you don't need to introduce them to their music or their lyrics or their anything like that. That might be too much for the kid, but
At the time,
you
yeah.
get them the idea, and you know, eventually when you show them the music, they'll be like, those are the people from the children's book.
Yeah,
They,
that
like,
you showed me when we were a kid.
and like it might give them that wonder of like, this is a real band, like, and then they
Yeah.
can be so interested in it. And I think that's why that's so cool. And I think that's one of the things that I'm big into Star Wars, and I think that's one of the things that I really like is how when it, you know, first started in the late 70s, Star Wars was just a movie, and then they made 2 more movies, but then today, you know, nearly 50 years later, which is insane. It's everything. Like, you have your literature and you have your novels, and there's crazy novelists who work on them, and but then you also have the little kids books, and like that'll introduce them and be like, this is your little R2D2,
the stuffy,
and then like when the kid is old enough, you can go and watch a Star Wars movie, and they'll be like, that's the little guy from my, you know, my book, and then it just sort of it's fun.
I think intergenerational learning is one of the coolest things ever. Like, learning about the Beatles and stuff through my grandfather, like listening to the music with him, and then like him making jokes about like, oh, like he always made this joke about like the yellow school bus, like that you would take to school, but he would jokingly call it, like he would say, I take a yellow submarine to school. And like, it was funny because then when I got older, like obviously our school offers a Beatles class, so I actually did take it, and it was really cool learning about their music like more in depth, and like getting to know some of the stuff that like maybe even he didn't know. And he thought it was so cool that I was taking that class, because he was like, that wouldn't have been something that was like offered in my day, but it's something that allows your generation to interact with my generation more. And like, he thought that was so cool, and I was like, you're right, like I learned about it to start from you.
Exactly.
But like, it caused my own interest. Like, I think it's something a lot of people overlook now, especially like with social media and like access to online sources. It's just so easy for anybody to like learn things themselves now. But I think that then we lose that connection of like learning something through someone else that gives you that bond and that connection.
Exactly. Like, I learned, like, we're a big Lego family, and Lego, and even though it's a different thing, but like that's where I learned Lego through my dad, and that was, I mean, obviously I could have gone on my own and learned everything I needed, but it's just so much more of a family thing.
Yeah.
And like, my dad, he showed me like Star Wars, and he showed me, you know, all these things that I've come to love, and I'm gonna, you know, one day show my kids, and it's gonna be a really cool thing to keep going, because it's also gonna be especially with that kind of stuff where like the Beatles made music, then they stopped, so it's always looking back. But like with some of this stuff that just like is a continuation, like with Harry Potter, like my mom read the books as they came out, and then, you know, I was more introduced through the movies, and like that was something, like that's the connection there.
Yeah.
But like when you look at Star Wars, like there's still movies that are coming out like a few years down the line, and I've been 50 years since the first one came out, and that's like the intergenerational connection of like all the stuff. And I would love the day where there's a literary class looking at all this stuff, because I mean, diehard Star Wars fans know that there could be one. Yeah. But just like people who work with literature don't, which is like there's not enough. But hopefully, as it gets bigger, there'll be more of the cross section.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, literature can like have such niche portions of it, but there's so many other ones. Like, Disney started off as a niche portion, and like, look where we are now.
Exactly.
Like, there's so much to talk about in terms of Disney. Like, whether you want to look at the side of like, you know, like making money off of merchandise and all that, or if you want to talk about the parks themselves and like how those were developed, and like you can look at it from an engineering perspective, you can look at it from
I remember
a monetization
being
perspective.
In junior high and looking at being what like they call them
Imagineers.
Yeah, because that was always so much fun.
And then like you can look at like there's Disney books, like there's the Disney Channel versus like the actual like animated Disney films versus the live action portions versus
it's just they've
acquired
everything, things
like Marvel, like it's just so expansive now that like there's so much more you can write about or talk about,
because they keep getting more, because now they own all the Fox stuff,
right,
And so that will really add more. And then they have they have the Marvel, they have all the Lucasfilm, they have.
And I mean, like,
everything.
I don't know if you remember from high school, like, we didn't get to put quotes in our yearbook, but there was, like, an Instagram page where, like, you could post your photo and, like, where you were going to school, and, like, you could put a quote. And my quote was a Walt Disney quote, because although, yes, Disney makes a lot of money, and he was not a perfect man, because no person is, it all started from a drawing of a mouse. And, like, look where we are now.
Right.
That, to me, is, like, terribly inspirational for so many generations to be, like... A lot of people say, oh, well, like, yeah, you can be famous because, you know, everybody who is famous, like, started out small. But it's very rare that you follow someone in their entire career. You typically either see them right at the start and then watch them explode, like, way later in your life when you kind of forgot about them.
Yeah.
Or it's, like, they're already so big by the time you, like, learn about them that it's, like... kind of different versus like Disney is something that like so many generations grew up with. And like even my grandfather, like he was like, I remember so many different things. Like my mom, she remembers the day that they like were putting on the news that they were building the Epcot ball. Like she's like, I remember that, like I remember seeing that on my TV. And
Wow.
so when we were walking up to Epcot for the first time, like my mom like was having such a moment because it was like, I saw this thing on TV like getting built, and it was like the biggest thing ever, like at the time. Like it was so wild that this was happening. She's like, and here I am with like my teenage daughter and my mom walking up to it because we're going to that park and it's so much more than just a ball now. Like, and I was sitting there thinking like, oh my god, this is so crazy, like to think about, because I think for our generation too, it's hard to put all of that into perspective because, you know,
there's just from when our parents were born to now, so much was built. And then like from where we are when we were born, there was just already so much. So there being more now is less of a change.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there was just already so much. So now we're only seeing the big changes that are different things. Like the biggest thing that like hard to argue the biggest thing that's happened in our lifetime so far is the advancements that we're seeing right now in artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Because that's just, it's kind of scary.
Yeah. I mean, being an English major, I have different views on artificial intelligence, I think, than a lot of people do. Like, I do see the benefits and I see, like, the positive side to it, but, like, one of my English teachers, like, my English prof, he phrased it in the best way possible. Like, if we're starting to let artificial intelligence do our thinking for us, then what are we for? And I've truly never had something hit me harder sitting in a class going, you're so right.
That's exactly what it is, because we're getting to the point that people, they refer to it as the singularity, which is like where it gets so smart that we're on an equal playing field.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, where do we go from there?
Like, what are we used for at that point?
Mm-hmm. And like, I mean, science fiction explores that all the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's one of those times where science fiction is becoming science fact.
Yeah.
And that's a scary reality, especially when this is one of those things that is dangerous. And because once it reaches our level, it's gonna go above us. And that's just,
I know for me too, like wanting to be a teacher, it's scarier too, because like the amount of access to technology that's going to be starting to become required. Like, we didn't really use a ton of technology, at least not to my knowledge that I remember, until like even the junior high level really was when we first started having like a computer lab, and like that was like the big deal that you got to go to the computer lab like once a week or something like that. And then in high school it was Chromebooks. And then for me, it's just scary to think that like when I'm going to be teaching high school, like are they not going to have just desks anymore? Like, are they just going to be tables and rows of computers? Like, that's...
It's an interesting...
I think about it all the time where I'm like...
Because you think the iPads for notes.
Yeah. And I honestly, I'm so bad for it. I do it too, but...
But like, no, but like that's just like the advancement of how things are going. And like, when is it going to be the thing where our tables are just the technology themselves and we do everything on there? And
I also fear for like reading books.
Books themselves
like,
are
the physical book, like you're still gonna have authors because authors still have to write the stories.
Yeah, and I think that'll be.
I think authors will be a career that outlasts a lot of other ones.
Authors certainly. I don't know if like the physical books themselves are gonna last.
Publishing companies will disappear, and that to me is scary because I actually am someone who very much relies on physical copies of books. I don't enjoy reading books online.
I agree.
I don't mind it for textbooks if it's cheaper, but that's in the only instance of if it's cheaper. If
I'd
it's
say
the same
only
or more,
only a textbook.
I will still take a physical textbook over an electronic textbook any day. Unless it has some kind of features that will help me benefit, or it has to have a quiz
I find
or
a
something
lot for
like that.
For science textbooks at least, being
Same.
able to search the document with like just a Control F is a insane lifesaver that because I feel a lot of the time textbooks have unreliable indexes.
That's fair.
So it's just like.
But no, for me, that's like a very scary thought, is like the idea of like not being able to acquire a physical book would like, and like with the book bans going on in the United States right now, like that's very scary, for me, being someone who's like a person who loves English so much that like we're getting to a point where like not only are we seeing like media bans like in Canada with like regards to like no social media can like post about news stories that can be seen in Canada. Like that's scary to me. Like we're getting to a point of not only are we seeing like artificial intelligence grow, but we're also seeing a form of censorship happen at the same time. That's gonna be really horrifying to me.
It's a rough one where we're at the point where it's like we're weighing what's going to be like the most important to us, and like as we make these advancements for technology, things like capitalism are going to become less, they're going to make, it makes less sense.
Yeah.
And in a like it's going to be bad because like there's going to be really high advancements and not everyone's going to have access to it, and it's going to really throw some other people down way further than they already are. In other ways, I do think it's going to be our saving grace, unfortunately, because if not everybody has access to the highest technologies, maybe they don't advance enough to surpass us. Maybe it'll take longer. Maybe it won't happen in our lifetimes. Let's hope that is the case. But it's still fucked.
I think that along, like, I think unfortunately, like, a lot of people too, obviously, like, I'm a political science minor, so, like, this is stuff that, like, I think I have more access to probably than a lot of people, or I spend a lot more time with than a lot of other people do, is like I very commonly choose not to read the news, and I know that's like kind of a controversial topic for a lot of people, especially with what's going on in the world right now, but like for me, I'm someone who like lives in a state of like I have some really significant like fears. Like I'm not someone who enjoys change, which is like really hard to avoid, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm someone who like fears the concept of time moving, like getting towards like losing family members and like aging is scary to me. And like only in the last year have I found that like I've been able to like sustain those fears to an extent, but when I'm reading news stories and stuff like that, like it makes it a lot harder to control those concerns and those worries than like if I'm not reading those news stories and it's not something I'm encountering every day. Like
that makes sense.
Things
and I
like,
feel like
yeah,
like, and also there's just a lot of things going on in the news right now that I'm not going to name by name, but there's just stuff that's going on, and it feels like everybody needs to have an opinion on it, and I feel like it's just the stuff that's going on is so complicated.
Yeah, like women's rights, you like need presidential candidates
to just do
candidates.
Like you need to do hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of research to even form a nice opinion, and nobody does that, and it just gets fucked, so it's so much easier to stay out of it.
It really is, and that's like something too that like a lot of countries are struggling with right now. It's like there's such a lack of political participation because people don't have the desire to go out and find that information and decide what they think is the option that best supports them. Like for me, every time there's an election here, I read all of the party platforms, and I mean every stance of the party platform. Like I forget what network it is, but there is a news network that releases every subcategory and their opinions on it and what their intentions are. And like a teacher in high school showed it to us, and I've used it every election we've had since we've been eligible to vote.
It's such an interesting like thing because it's not information that they make easily accessible.
No, or if they do, it's like it's a couple news sources that have it, but you still have to be willing to go find it and read it yourself. Mm-hmm. It's not like thrown in your face in any type of way. You're not seeing it posted on social media that you should go check it out. Like there's just people influencing for certain parties or certain candidates over actually reading and making your own choices and your own decisions. Like for me, I have like my dad is pretty politically involved. I would say like he's not a politician, but he's tied to a party. And I don't believe in being tied to a party because I believe in choosing, like, being open to option, basically.
Oh yeah, I feel like things can change. Like you can really like what this one political leader is saying, and you'll be like, I think this person will be great for my country or my region or my, whatever
Or they're gonna help me.
thing, and this is great. And then they could be like, move on. They'd be like, I'm retired. I'm gonna go to the Bahamas. Yeah. And then like the next person comes by, and it's the same party, and they're just
are so opposite,
different, and you're like, want to hold on. But if you're tied to that party, that's such a hard thing to sort of be like, I'm gonna go pop over to this other color.
Like, I think for me, like, my dad is very party loyal, so even if he's not a massive fan of the leader, he typically will still vote for that person, and I don't agree with that personally. But like, I can understand it though. Like, there's not a party, like, he's tied to the party because of his life position too. He's a veteran. There's very few parties that are that supportive of veterans, like, or are working towards like initiatives for veterans. Like, there's one main party who does that. He's also had the most success and enjoyed candidates the most from that party in his lifetime. And so to me, I get it, but being like a younger person who's going into it with a different perspective, especially because it's by minor, I quite personally believe that, like, I have to take the time to look everything over and feel confident in my decision, because we're also getting to a point where, like, those decisions are going to severely affect us, and our generation is going to eventually overcome our parents' generation in the amount of voters.
Even like at our age, we've been eligible to vote for a little over 2 years now.
Yeah.
And like, it's crazy because like we're like, that's not a lot of time. Mm-hmm. So even like us making a commitment to this party or that, like, it's just like we don't. It's impossible for us to even know enough.
Yeah. And I think too, like I said, making the choice to be educated on it was something that, like, I actively decided I wanted to do. But I know a lot of people at our age too who just are like, I don't care enough, and they just choose not to vote. And I think that's like the worst case scenario. Like, I would rather see more people our age vote, even if they don't vote the same as me or don't agree with my opinions, than I would see people be passive actors in like our country's future. Because, like, realistically, at the end of the day, you can't go around blaming other people for your issues if you don't take the advantages that come with democracy.
Yeah. Like, no, I remember hearing, like, I forget who originally said it, but believe it or not, Will said it the other day. He didn't come up with it, okay. But he said it was like, of all, like, of the government systems, like, democracy is a bad government system, but it's the best government system.
Literally. No, that's...
Because every other alternative is bad. Democracy is bad. It's just the least bad. Because there's no good one.
No, there's not. There's not, like, a great way to run a government.
Because, like, it could be like, oh, there's one person who does everything and nobody gets any say. Which is great if that person knows everything and is completely trustworthy and makes the best decisions always. Which is impossible.
Because we're human.
And then, just like you run into that with, like, assigning too much to one person. So you spread it out. But then there's too many people.
Bureaucracy, too, comes into play, which tends to be, like, something that hinders decision-making processes, too. Yeah. And, like, a lot of the hard part about politics, too, is, like, we're seeing religion come into play, especially in the States, when it comes to women's issues and human rights issues. That's
crazy.
It's finding candidates, like, every person is going to have personal bias. It doesn't matter who you are. You have some form of a personal bias on something.
That's just how people work.
That's how humans are. But I find a lot of people take positions of politics and they go in saying they're going to be open-minded, and it very quickly goes the other way. And I find a lot of it has to do with once you walk into that office is such a different circumstance than when you're on the outside trying to get into the office. Because you want to be in the room where it happens, but when you're in the room where it happens, it's not necessarily what you thought it was.
It's such a, like, being a politician and being the person who's, at the top, it's such a hard thing to figure out what it is. Like, it's not something that we could ever, like, figure out or, like, know what it's like.
Like, I remember someone in high school when I was really close with her. Her mom always used to be like, she always used to be so interested in the fact that I was interested in politics from such a young age, but it was more in an interest of, like, wanting to understand how the system worked and, like, what it was like and how could it affect me when I was older, when I had the chance to, like, actively participate within the system.
Yeah.
And she was like, you're going to be the next prime minister. And I've forever said it, and I'll forever probably continue to say it. That is a job I will never want. I will never want to walk into the office of the Prime Minister of Canada, having just won an election, and realizing, holy fuck, this is not what I thought it was.
Like, you're in charge of an entire country.
That's in debt.
Millions.
Almost every country is in debt.
Millions and millions of people.
It's just how well you hide it. And not everybody agrees with your opinion. And unfortunately, like, politics, we are increasingly moving towards a more accepting version for women, but it's still not. Like, obviously, I'm taking my women in politics course now, and, like, we've had a couple conversations about it, and, like, something that's becoming more and more increasingly common with more women candidates is violence and harassment towards women candidates, like death threats, like scandals that are true. And, like, crazy. A lot of it has to do with, we started in a world with gender roles where it was normal, and it wasn't, like, for women to be in a household, and that was it. Like, that's just the reality. And, like, unfortunately, there are some people who still heavily believe and don't even consider women candidates because they think like that. And, like, you're entitled to your own beliefs and your own thinking.
I have no problem with that. A lot of the stuff where it's women as well who firmly believe that women aren't anything. It's not even just men. That blows my mind. Because how indoctrinated into you is it when you think that I am nothing? It's so much easier to think that someone else is nothing than to be yourself, which is like, and I've seen that, and it blew my mind.
Yeah, and, like, something else too is, like, also I think more increasingly recent, like, I've overheard even girls on our campus being like, oh yeah, like, I just want to marry a rich sports player and, like, basically be the rich housewife. And, like, there's so many things on social media, though, that are pushing those narratives that are only putting women back in the box that we've spent so many years getting out of.
Which is, like it's crazy, like, because...
Like, you do you, if you want to be a housewife.
Yeah, I mean, if that's really what you want to do.
Like, if you want to go shopping every day and cook for your husband, and, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with housewives. I think they're really empowering in some ways.
Like, if your passion is, like, cooking and laundry and sweeping and shit, you
do it.
Give her. But, like, you could go to space, dog. Like...
Or, like, for example, like, even, like, Auntie Mitch, like, Freya's mom. Like, 4 kids, all with autism. She didn't really have a choice to work. She chose not to. But it's been so empowering watching her empower her kids to desire to do more, but also to know that, like, their autism and stuff is not a limit. Like, she decided not to work because she wanted to support them in their appointments and in teaching them that, like, autism isn't a hindrance. Like, to me, that's so empowering as a housewife, or, like, as someone who doesn't work, who's unemployed.
Yeah.
But, like, I think pushing narratives towards children, especially because they have the access to social media now, where, like, people are pushing, like, oh, you're going to want to be a housewife or you just want to be rich. I think we need equal representation of, that's okay. Mm-hmm. And if you want that, you should do that. But also that it's okay to want to be an astronaut, or it's okay to want to go be the next president of the United States, or It's okay to want to go be an author or a journalist. Like, I think that the access to representation that's more diverse in, like, women's achievements is so bogged down, and we're seeing so much now of people just being like...
I know, like, it's something I've seen my sister struggle with, and it is the most frustrating thing, because, you know, a lot of the time in my life, it's something I've seen that affect other people who aren't directly connected to me. So it's something that you see and you hear, or you don't really see, you just hear about it or read about it, and you're like, that's terrible. Mm-hmm. And then you see it affect someone so close to you, and you want to burn the world down.
Yeah.
And it's insane, because I know my sister's run into those struggles with her skiing.
Yeah.
And, you know, they've led to her being where she is now. I mean, mostly not competing anymore because of injuries. No.
But also,
like it's the stuff that takes away, and not, like, being where you're going to be. And, like, I know my mom only stayed home. Mm-hmm. But originally, like, in my parents' plan, that was never the plan. My mom was going to work and my dad was going to stay home. Because, like, my mom just had the higher paying job. My dad thought, I'll just stay home. You know, I'll do everything that needs to be done at home, and that'll be that. But then he got a job because they were poor university students, so they both needed a job. And then he just sort of shot up through the ranks a lot faster than anyone could have imagined. Mm-hmm. So it ended up being the other way. But that's purely circumstantial. And it feels like it's something that's always been like yeah, mom stayed home, which is like sort of like the stereotype. But I've always thought of it as mom stayed home, but mom didn't need to stay home, and mom wasn't gonna stay home. She did because she could, and she wanted to.
See, and that's the same situation with my mom when she started like the after school business when I was like in later elementary going into like middle school. She chose to stay home because she wanted that time with me. Like she said because I'm an only child, she like wanted that time to like spend with me and like be around me. And so my dad was in the military and he was getting paid enough and she's going to make money from that. So and they had their own business, and so during the day she would work for the business at home, but like she worked from home, so she wasn't like unemployed, but she stayed home because she wanted to be around me. Then when I went into high school, that's when she started getting back into an office job and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or even like my boyfriend, like Murray from like the second episode, like his mom for a while, like she stayed home. He told me about that, and she had like a side hustle where she would like build all these really, really gorgeous invitations and like paper products.
That's
and, like,
what my mom had, the same sort of thing. I loved
it. Like she's made me like tickets for events for my birthday, like for him that he's given to me, and they look so real and so beautiful. And I'm like, it's a choice for a lot of people. There's some people who, yes, it's like not a choice. Like for Auntie Mitch, I'm not sure in a different universe would she have chosen to stay home? Maybe not. But, like, if she had the option to. But, like, at the same time, I don't think she regrets it in any way.
Mm-hmm. Like, I know my mom, when she stayed home and it ended up just, taking care of me and my sister, she started her sewing business. Mm-hmm. And that's Cozy Canuck is what it was called. And she had, like, a cute little beaver logo. And you've seen them, but it's the pillows with the names on them.
Yeah.
And then the really fluffy blankets.
Yeah.
And she made all that stuff so you could, get your personalized, pillow with your name on it and all kinds of different themes and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And she loved doing that, and she was able to pursue a different passion of hers that, if she was an accountant, wouldn't have been something that she was, be able to do. And she really liked it. She also had a cake business for a little while, which she couldn't keep doing because food inspectors were like, you need another kitchen. And my mom was like, what? I have one kitchen. And they're like, no, 2 kitchens, one for baking, one for this. And she was like, oh, fuck you. So she stopped doing that. But, like, she does all this stuff that she really enjoyed. And she works from home now. Like, she's doing accounting again. But she's like, that's because of COVID, and she can do it from home.
Yeah, exactly.
And because
COVID changed a lot.
She just likes spending time with us, and I don't think she'll go back to the office when Renee moves out.
No.
I think she'll stay working from home because she's got a pretty nice office set up, and it's pretty nice. She's very funny about it. When I'm home, she'll be like downstairs and she'll have breakfast and she's like, all right, I'm off to work, and then she'll just go upstairs and go to her office. And then at the end of the day, she'll open her door and then she'll yell and she'll be like, I'm home from work. And it's always just like so much fun because
well, my mom's office is in their room, like my parents' room, which, like, honestly, I do wish she had her own office space again, because obviously she gave up her office to my nanny who lives with us to give her that bigger room and more space. And so her office, like, she's a really nice standing desk, like, all this stuff. But...
well, I'd kill for a standing desk.
To me, I would love to see my mom gain an office space again, because I think she would enjoy that more. Mm-hmm. I know her room
the office
is, like,
space she has now,
space.
It used to be our spare bedroom. Mm-hmm. And the spare bed was in there for the longest time.
Yeah.
But then it got moved downstairs to what was my dad's office.
Right.
And now my dad has it. Because it used to be my dad would do the most work from home. Because mom just didn't work from home. So the room that had the spare bed in used to also be the room where she would do all the sewing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then it just got switched.
Yeah.
So now the spare bedroom is technically dad's office, and mom's got just the whole room that's an office now, which it still has the sewing stuff in it. But
yeah, because my dad's office is in his garage, which is also like his leisure space and all that. But like,
but no, my mom's got like the setup. Like, 'cause she's got the laptop. She's got like 2 extra monitors.
Yeah,
she's got the whole L desk with like the whole thing.
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
She needs it for everything she does, because she'll have just like stupid long documents on her like upright monitor.
Yeah.
And then like just a regular monitor in front of her that has all the other stuff. But it's just like, yeah. I feel like we've left this dip.
It's not warm, is it? It's like kind of.
It's like, you know what? Let's just go for it.
Okay.
Let's just go for it.
It might not be the warmest, so if it's not as good, I'll heat it up for you later, and you can have a second test run. But
if it's bad, then we'll like record something separately.
Yeah,
later.
we can do that.
Oh no.
Yeah, the cheese is gonna be extra crispy.
No. This is good. This is good.
I probably should have got a spoon because you could have spooned it onto a chip, but I didn't. Oh no.
I didn't get a spoon.
Yeah, the cheese is kind of crunchy on the top too. That's my bad.
I just feel like the chips they're not tough enough. I do say though, it does smell good. It looks good.
So,
oh no.
Oh, that's okay. That's the burnt piece.
Yeah, we don't need the burnt stuff. Anyway, okay.
Thoughts? The kick won't get you till the end.
Well, I'm getting like a whole bunch of different flavors now.
You have to wait till the end.
Because it was chicken forward, and then the cheese, and now here's the spice. But not too much spice. It's perfect. It's perfect amount of spice.
No, it's definitely... It's one of those dips that it just like...
Oh god. That's way too much. Holy shit.
That's okay. You poured some out for me. That's all you were doing. You're being such a good host.
Okay, here we go. Yeah. Wow.
Yep. Shout out to my Uncle Troy.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite things.
So, explain what's in it specifically.
Okay, so you could either take like...
You do that. I'm just gonna fill this with water.
You could either do like a chicken breast, like a couple chicken breasts, or I used canned chicken because that's what he used.
You can get chicken in a can?
Yes, you can.
I've never in my life seen chicken in a can.
Well, you just ate it. So yeah,
it was good.
So you can get. I mean, it's not something I would eat outside of using it for a dip.
Double dipping brought to you by chicken in a can.
Love it. But yeah, so you put that and you heat it up in a skillet, and then you add in... I'm trying to think of what else I put in it. There's ranch in it. Oh, I added a brick of cream cheese to it after you add a bit of the Frank's Red Hot.
Yeah, I was going to say there's like a little bit of...
Frank's Red Hot, yeah. And then you put in some ranch with it as well and put some cheese mixed in it. And then you also bake it with cheese on top if you want to.
Oh, you gotta.
In my opinion, you have to, but some people don't. So he gave me the option. So it's very easy to actually
I think if you were
make.
just looking to dip with the chip and like you didn't want to do the spoon, you didn't want to do the thing, you have to put very little cheese on top or no cheese.
The other thing is too, this is now double baked because like we baked it yesterday to be safe because I wasn't sure when we were doing the podcast, so I want to make sure it was cooked on time.
Yeah.
But
no, that was
I think
that's another note actually.
Dip.
So today's Sunday, which normally podcast comes out on Sunday. Podcast should have normally been out for like 8 hours now. It's not happening this time around just because yesterday was the St. Patrick's Day festivities when today's St. Patrick's Day because it's a Sunday. That's just how things worked out this year.
That's why I wore green.
Yeah. And so the podcast will be out on... Well, you're watching it now, so whenever it came out.
But no, I definitely, like, it's not that hard of a dip to make, but it's one of those dips that it's like if I was going to a party, like, it's not that hard to make. So it's something you could, like, definitely bring with you to somewhere. Do it in, like, the tinfoil-y type pans,
massive chip. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But no, my mom does, like, a taco dip, which is, like, with ground beef. And, like, all kinds of different, like, mix-ins with it. And then my nanny does triple layer dip, which is most commonly what I would say I bring to, like, a gathering. But this is something now that I've made it and I know how easy it actually is to make it. I would most definitely be more frequent in making this now that I know how easy it actually was to make it. Because, like, when you first taste it, you think it's this, like, dish that must have taken him, like, so long. But then when I made it, I was like, 20 minutes is not that long.
No,
like,
and then, like, the only thing that would take time was putting it in the oven. Yeah, which is not even a required step.
No, not if you didn't want to. Because you heat up all the ingredients in the skillet. So technically the ingredients are warm by the time you're putting them into the pan. You're only baking it to cook the cheese on the top.
Is canned chicken pre-cooked? It would be, wouldn't it?
I'm not sure. But he told me to cook it in the skillet, so I just followed his ruling.
What did it look like? Like, I'm trying to picture
okay, so I bought, like,
a
weird thing. Like, I bought the wrong one, technically. Oh. Because I bought the one that said, like, flakes of chicken, so I thought it would be, like, pre-shredded, basically.
It wasn't?
No, it comes in, like, a brick, and you could kind of shred it. It almost looked like cat food, kind of.
That sounds like Spam, Ciara.
But the one he had was from Costco, and I just didn't have those. I couldn't find one like it. It's like
shredded chicken?
It was chunks of chicken.
Chunks.
So he said he typically uses that one because it's also
and then it's like sort of
like
cubed chicken, kind of.
Almost kind of, yeah.
I think I'd prefer this because I kind of know what the consistency would be if it was like the cube chicken. Yeah. And I don't think it would be as good. Because this is like, it's
you aren't really getting like a full piece of chicken. It just has the chicken flavor baked through it.
What's the word? It's homogeneous. It's like, it's just all one sort of thing. It's not just like, here's some cheese, here's some chicken, here's some this.
No.
It's like, it is a thing. And I really like that.
Like baking, it was fun baking it in a skillet too, because you were like, at first when you put the chicken in there, you're kind of looking at it being like, oh my god, this is not going to turn out well. Like, it just looked weird. But then as you were adding things, like he was telling me too, like the cream cheese and the hot sauce, and then I was like, oh, okay, I see where we're getting with this, because it was hot sauce first, so you could coat the chicken basically, and then it was cream cheese, and then once I got to that step, I was like, oh, I'm seeing where this is going now. And then you add the ranch and like the cheese, and then by the time I was on that part, I was like, oh, okay, I really get where we're going with this now. Yeah. This makes a lot of sense. And then by the time I baked it with cheese, like we tried it yesterday, like Murray and I, and he even said, shout out to my taste tester. He even said like it's really good.
No, I mean that was really good. I really enjoyed that. I've been thinking a lot of, you know, I was gonna say like the podcast has been what it is for a long time. It's just 8. I mean, 8 weeks is a long time to do one thing in a row consistently.
Yeah.
And I've been really enjoying it the last 8 weeks of the podcast, but I'm looking to change it up a bit, and I think a cooking show.
That could be fire.
Could be a lot of fun, especially now that
I think you should make.
I was gonna make
the person who comes on have to pick the recipe.
Oh, interesting. I think I'd want to do a solo episode first. I'd want to make chicken penne. Yeah, I'd want to make chicken penne, and because that's just my signature dish.
But I think after that, I'd be very, like, I would want that solo episode, but I'd want to see other people cook with you. So I'd be interested to see people be like, oh, this is, like, my dish that I picked. Like, for example, like, we talked about the dips, and, like, was it Hudson who made the guacamole?
Hudson made guacamole.
So a lot like me, like, we took the time to, like, come up with different things, but, like, a dip can be anything, really. Like, someone could have brought you french fries and ketchup, let's be real. Like, that's true. It would have counted.
No, like, I've always said, like, there's so many things. I think cooking would be really interesting. I think cooking would be a lot of fun. And I'd want to, the cooking.
Season 2 of Double Dipping?
No, I think it'd be a different show.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think that would,
Does that make me the last episode of the podcast?
Oh, God, no.
Okay.
It would be an addition. Maybe, like, 1 week instead of an episode of Double Dipping, here's, I don't know, Cooking with Dippy.
Every 2 weeks. I see. I like where you're thinking.
Maybe not every 2 weeks, because I also want to... the clear choice is triple dipping, which is having 2 people on the podcast. That's just a clear choice for the name. But I feel like there's something better out there. I think it'd just be double dipping with multiple people, or like a special episode, because I want to do that. Like, I want to do an episode with Will and Murray.
The roommates.
Yeah. And then I want to get, like, multiple people per episode and really go out there.
I see you.
And then, yeah. It was really fun, actually. When I was out yesterday for St. Patrick's Day, people I'd never met before in my life recognized me from the podcast.
That's crazy.
It was really cool. Yeah.
You didn't bring that up yesterday.
Yesterday was a really long day. So I didn't have everything on the dome, but now, like, yeah, it was pretty cool. Like, people I didn't know. And then, like, I got I was talking to Seamus. And Seamus is going to do an episode of the podcast now.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Next is it? I just reached for my phone, which is
there.
If
you don't remember, that's okay.
Derry. I actually ran into Derry at Candid last night.
That would be such a good episode.
Darrison. Yeah, I think Derry's next, which means I got to reach out to Derry. Yeah. No, I want to get all kinds of people on and do all kinds of things and change it up. Mm-hmm. But I think if I do a cooking show, I want a cameraman, and I just don't know who would do that. Maybe I can pay Will with the food we cook.
I mean, if I'm free, I would do some of them.
You'd be the camera person for...
Well, I mean, I took film too.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, you might actually be the best choice then.
I'd be open to it.
Like I said, I think that'd be a lot of fun. Man.
Filming, I enjoy more than the editing process, which is the opposite for you, I know. But
it depends. I think for my first film, I enjoyed all of it.
Always the first film. Always.
The second one, I really enjoyed filming it. It's just 'cause it was my dad, but I think honestly for the second one, I've enjoyed the editing so much more, just because I'm here and I don't get to see my dad a lot.
That's
but
fair.
whenever I'm editing, I get to hear him talk, and see him all the time. So that's really nice. But yeah, I don't know. And like me and the boys, we played Lethal Company the other night.
Oh yeah.
And so I recorded a bit of that, and I was playing around with putting some clips together.
I think
and it can be fun, but it can also get boring very quickly.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Like if you have an idea and you know you have a scene and you're like just like pulling things together and you're like this, that's great, and then you're like, oh, now what? And then I just found myself like just closing the editing software and moving on to do something else.
Yeah, I know for me, like, not every film, but most films, like, I've enjoyed the filming process more. I enjoy the rewatching of my film clips, like, when I'm first watching them over to see what I want to keep, what I want to cut.
Yeah.
But past that, I don't enjoy, like, figuring out transitioning and that kind of thing, because I do a lot of documentary-style filmmaking. Mm. So when
we should make a film together.
That would be very interesting, I feel like.
Like, you just, like... Lead director would be Ciara, and then I would be, like, assistant director and editor. And then we do that. I think that'd be really cool.
I definitely, yeah, I'd be open to it, for sure.
I have no idea what we do.
I don't know, either. So much to pick from when it comes to the world of filmmaking.
You could literally do anything.
Yeah, no, I've typically, I would say, like, out of my time, like, working with films, like, in both the classes, I would say, like, documentary style is definitely where I leaned more prominently, just because I enjoy, like, getting to know people and, like, getting to film my never-before-seen film about the Priscilla, Queen of the Highlands drag show here at St. FX, and getting to talk to Dr. Chris Fraser about their experiences in drag and their experiences with, like, the 2S LGBTQIA+ community here, and, like, what the importance of the show is and, like, what it does for people here that are a part of that community. I really enjoyed making that film, and, like, I think that film, in my mind, will forever be unfinished because it never ended up being the end product that I hoped it would be. No one's actually ever seen it. Like, I have a final cut from the class. I've just never shown it to anyone.
Like, besides the prof?
Actually, no. I did offer to, like, send it to them, and they didn't respond to my email, and so I just never bothered. But, like, my mom even, like...
Wasn't that the project for the class? I'm confused.
Oh, I said... Well, yeah, that prof. Sorry, I thought you meant, like, Dr. Chris Fraser.
Oh, okay.
No, I did send it to the prof, but yeah.
I was like, the prof for the class? I was like, how did... that was the grade. You do one thing in that class.
Final cuts, too, to the class in the end. And so, like, the people in the classroom saw it, but, like, past that, like, anybody I told I was going to show them the film, I never actually showed it to them. Like, my mom still brings it up to this day, like, almost a year and a half later.
Are you going to show me that? No.
Being like, I never got to see that film. And I think it's because in my mind, like, being an artistic person, like I always have been, I have a hard time showing people artistic pieces that I've done that don't achieve what I want them to achieve, or aren't the success that I hoped they were. Because, like, I wouldn't say the film's bad. I had to just pivot what I was doing.
Yeah, I feel like that's what I was struggling with right now with my current film with my dad, is everything is perfect. I really like it, except for the end, and it doesn't have a good end, and it bothers me.
Yeah.
It ends very abruptly.
It'll still irk you 3 years later.
No, and that'll be what it is, and it really sucks, and I have a lot of extra footage that's unusable, because it's bad, and it kind of blows. But you know, it's not the end of the world, and I wish it was better, but I'd have to reshoot, and that's just not something that I honestly could do it. But I'm not gonna.
I would love to sit in on a film experience of someone like filming someone else filming a film like start to finish, and like watching their process and like watching them like experience the same things, you know, from doing it yourself, like where you don't have the perfect footage, and like what in a higher budget situation does that look like? Like, do you just go reshoot a piece? Do you use what you have? Do you change the plot line a little to fit it? Like, I would just love to see how different filmmakers think. Like, I know in our French class last term, like, Morgane, she brought in a French filmmaker whose film we'd watched from, he teaches at U of T, I think now, or York or something like that, and he came here, and he was here doing a guest talk, so he knew Morgan. Yeah. So he came into the class and spoke to us, and he said, he was like, nothing in a film ever fully goes to plan, it's just how good you are at hiding it. Because he said, as a filmmaker, a lot of people will always never be happy with their project. And like, if you asked me about it, like, there's projects like, I've come to accept the fact that I'm happy with what it is now. He said, but if you talked to me like 2 years ago when I finished it, I would have told you like, oh, this didn't go to plan. I didn't like this. I didn't like that about it. Yeah,
I feel like I certainly feel that way about the film that I just finished. My first film, I was actually a crazy stroke of luck because I don't have that feeling. There is one thing. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. There's thing.
There's always one thing.
But the thing is, I didn't think about it until it was pointed out to me.
Yep, that's how it happens.
And then I was like, well, I would change that. But all in the whole scheme of things, doesn't really bother me because I feel like it's fine the way that I perceive the film.
Like, is it something that like sits in the back of your mind and irks you or no?
Because in Gone, there's You Never See Me.
No.
But there's the point where I'm under the covers and
yeah.
So it's clear that I'm there, but you can't
physically see
me. And I always thought the point of the film was that you could see my influence, but you cannot see me, so you know what's going on. But some people said that sort of took them away from it, and I was like, I don't feel that way. But
I think, too, filmmaking is a lot of a thing where, like, you can show it to people and someone's always going to have an opinion, but, like, at the end of the day, being a filmmaker, you have to be happy with your final cut. And I think for me, like, it's different when you're doing it for a class versus doing it on your own personal time, like. And I think that part to me, like, I would be curious to see if I did decide to endeavor in making a film on my own time, if I would feel very differently about the process, because like, a grade isn't riding on it. Like, you don't feel as much need to necessarily take other people's opinions. I wonder if I would feel very differently about my films, because, like, the Priscilla film is something that, like, even a year, almost a year and a half later, still sits on my mind. Like, at the fact that project to me is not finished, and it really irks me that it's not finished. More than any of the other films I did, like the short films, like, I changed a lot about them, but there's nothing about them in particular that stands out to me where I'm like, oh, I wish I'd done this differently or done that differently. Mm-hmm. But when you commit to making a longer project and spending all the time and, like, getting to film it and getting to watch back the clips and everything and, like, looking at what I wanted it to be and seeing that that's just not what I was able to achieve really doesn't sit well with me. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that, like, I like things to be as I picture them in my head. Like, I like planning and all of that, and, like, I really struggle when things, like, I really struggle with pivoting and when things aren't perfect. And so in my head it bothers me, but I'm sure if I showed tons of other people this, like, I don't know, I think it's like 8 to 10 minute film, they'd probably think it's great. But in my head, it's not the film I was making.
Because in your head you still have that original idea, and you don't have what it ended up being. And I know a lot of people get caught up in what things originally were supposed to be, and instead of trying to take in what the end result is, even if the end result is good. Like, I know in 2017, oh my god, the Justice League movie came out. And after it had changed hands through directors, because the first director's daughter died, and it was like a big thing. So he stepped away from the project, understandably. And it moved on to this other guy. And the whole thing sort of shifted in tone, and it changed. So people were obsessed with Zack Snyder's original Justice League. And eventually it came out. Yeah. But it was because people were they were hooked up on what it originally was.
Yeah.
Now, in that case, understandable. The one that we got was terrible. But, like, in the cases where it's not, then it's fine. Like, I know people are upset about all kinds of movies that, like, yeah, but it originally had this, and there's, like, 2 hours that are just gone, like, and, like, where's that? And it's, like...
footage that's unused in a film, I think people would be shocked to find out.
Oh, yeah, it's insane.
Even
I feel
when
like
it's short films.
People would lose their minds. And especially when they, they find out, people will be like, I know, especially for Star Wars Episode 3, people are like, yeah, there's, like, a 4-hour cut where it just has, like, 2 more hours. That movie's a lot of just talking and bureaucracy, so I feel like it wouldn't gain a lot, especially because it's not, like... The cut that exists certainly doesn't have visual effects.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're going to be going into a thing. It's just going to be a lot of scenes of people talking.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like people want something that doesn't exist.
Or, like, they'll see a bunch of scenes that are cut out, and you're like, oh, I love that scene, but it's like, you have to think about it in the scheme of the whole movie, too. Would that scene have really fit?
Yeah,
probably
like
not.
A deleted
it probably
scene.
was cut for a very valid reason. And
you're like, oh, that was so cool.
Or like,
and then,
I
like,
wish
you would,
they'd
like,
gone that
insert
route.
it into the movie, and then you watch it, and you're like...
This doesn't make sense.
And you're like, no, it just, like, it messes up with the flow. Like, I know originally in Revenge of the Sith, there was a whole sequence where they, like... I don't know what was going on, but they were, like, in this weird... They were in the ship, and then they had to go into these flooded corridors, and they were, like, trying to escape around, and it just didn't fit with what was going on, especially for the opening of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a whole other scene where it's a joke that one character, Shakti, just died, like, 3-4 different times. Because, like, she's died in a deleted scene, and then she died in a game that isn't canon anymore, and then she died here, and then she died there, and there.
Yeah.
It's just, like, the most ridiculous thing, where she still doesn't actually have a canon death.
Oh, okay.
She's just, like, she's dead. Don't know how or why.
Why, yeah.
And it's one of the things that people talk about. They're like, oh, we want to see it. But it's so funny that the one that could have been in the movie just doesn't fit. And it's just because it just doesn't fit.
I feel like it's something people don't understand until you, like, endeavor making the film yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because now I get why, like, people cut scenes out and stuff. Like, when I watch back some of the films I made, I'm like, yeah, I get why people who make big movies, like, end up having these really cool-looking deleted scenes, but it just didn't fit with the overall, like, film.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. Like, it doesn't mean that it's like, oh, the scene itself was shot bad. It doesn't mean, oh, it didn't fit the flow. It might just not have fit the vibe or the tone. Like, it might not have... Or maybe, like, some actor watching it back was like, you know what? I didn't like how I looked in that, or I wasn't comfortable in that scene. Or the body language is off, or the makeup looks wrong, or the lighting is terrible, or... Like, there's so many reasons why a deleted scene ends up being deleted. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I don't think a lot of people wouldn't understand that or endeavor into it.
And it could even be, like, something that the original writer or director had in mind, that when the actor goes to do it, and the actor's like... Dude, like, this isn't... It's like, I'm embodying this character, and I don't feel this for this character. Like, and I...
Or you see it played out, and you're like, that's not what I pictured it looks like in my head, so let's just not.
Like, I know there was, again, another Star Wars example, because there's just so many, is for the original Star Wars, back in 1977, I know Mark Hamill did an interview not long after where George Lucas got him saying this long line that was all just like technical mumbo jumbo that didn't have any meaning yet.
Yeah.
Because it was the first establishing movie. And then he was like, George, no one talks like this. Like, this isn't normal. But it was something George wanted to have in as like sort of a establishment for more other stuff. But and it was just like, we can't do this. Like, even though it's part of the vision, it doesn't make sense anymore. And like, and there used to be a scene in that movie where Luke went to go play like a game of like space pool with his friends at a bar, which wouldn't have... You haven't seen the original Star Wars. Blew up the Death Star.
Not yet.
No, but like, which wouldn't have made sense, because then you're establishing him back on his home planet when really you want to look at him away from his home planet. Mm-hmm. You already have his establishing of the people he's there for, his aunt and uncle, not his friends. Mm-hmm. And yeah, just things don't fit.
Yeah.
Well, Ciara, I think this has been a good episode.
I think so.
Yeah, this is certainly, I would say, the longest. But we all know Hudson's episode is 2 hours.
Yeah, mine will not be the longest.
That is, a lot of people. I talked to a lot of people. One of the few people, I know 2 people who watched the whole thing through, but they listened to it at 1.5 speed.
Yeah.
Which is like fair, because that's 2 hours. Like, I listen to it at 1.5 speed, and this is my podcast.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, you know, we rate the dips.
Yeah.
This is a hard one. So right now, that's at the top, as it stands, excluding yours, is the bottom is Harry with salsa and chips.
Poor Harry.
And then Julia with salsa mixed with sour cream and chips.
Yes, I remember this.
Okay. And then it's Jacqueline with her cookies and icing and the fun dip, which I didn't like, and I'm just excluding it.
Okay.
Because if I was just going to do just the fun dip, it would be on the very bottom.
Okay.
But, like, we're taking the best dip.
Okay.
Then it's Hudson's guacamole, and then it's Caden's dumplings. So, placing this is a difficult one, Ciara. I'm gonna need another little taste.
Okay. Crispy, crunchy.
Because I really like this. Like, this is great.
I'm very proud of myself. I'm not like a major person who tries new recipes or cooks very often, but like I was very determined from like when you said I was going to be on the podcast. Like I told you immediately, I knew exactly what dip. This was literally the dip I was talking about. Like.
Okay. All right. Here's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Back in September.
Yeah.
Hudson originally made his guacamole.
Yeah.
It was great. I loved it. And I say that guacamole would be better than this.
Mm-hmm. But the one he made you for the pod?
The one he made on the podcast was more spicy.
Oh.
And I think the spice took away from the guac a little bit. It was still really good.
No, that's valid.
And it took the number 2 spot. But Hudson's original guac was still better than the one he made in the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fair. He likes tweaking his recipes. He likes playing with them.
Yeah.
Ciara's taking the number 2 spot.
That's crazy.
So now as it stands, it is Harry, Julia, Jacqueline, Hudson, Ciara, Caden.
That's fair.
There you go.
I'm really surprised, to be honest. I was kind of still expecting to be below Hudson.
Hudson's guacamole was really good, but I think...
That's crazy, yeah. I'll take number 2.
Yeah. That's really good.
So...
But thank you for coming, Ciara.
Thank you for having
Hopefully,
me.
When we do one of the multiple people episodes, we'd love to have you on.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe someday down the road, if I ever get a girlfriend, then we can do a double dating episode. Oh my god.
A double dating episode.
Double dating? That would be what it's called. Where it's like, and then like other couples come. Okay, that's a goal. We're going to do that. Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
It was a lot of fun.
It was.